Hi, everybody. I'm Frank Stanisci of Candid Frank Live, where you'll find us airing our views here on the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also now Smart TVs 2016 forward. Now joining me on Candid Frank Live, one of the usual folks that you see here. Heck, the only one you see here, Aaron William Freeland.
How you doing today, Frank?
Okay.
Yeah, not another winter cold, is it?
No. It's I am taking up exercising to help with the high blood pressure thing. I'm trying to defeat it, make it lose, something like that. So yeah, so wow, I exercised and I had something to eat, and then my alarm went off and said, Aaron's waiting, Aaron's waiting, Aaron's waiting. So that's what's going on with me. What's going on with you?
Oh, not a whole heck of a lot. First day back in the office after 3 weeks working from home, so that was
A change.
interesting. Yeah. No, there's a big doings a transpiring. They're changing designations for some folk and doing some shuffling and reorganizing, which is interesting to say the least. But it is what it is. The corporate world is always changing in an effort to better serve the consumer. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Okay, we'll leave it like that. That's where we'll leave it. Let's go to sports. Something a little more cheery. Oh my goodness. Tell me what's going on in Quebec and soccer and referees.
Well, as many folks may know, parents like to weigh in on how their children are performing on and off the
Oh.
field, and everybody's favorite pastime is getting after the referees. In an effort to prevent abuse by parents and coaches, there's a minor soccer association in Quebec's eastern townships. They're planning to equip their referees with body cameras next season. Most of the referees are between the ages of 14 and 16. They're increasingly facing virulent comments from parents. Martin Tremblay, president of the Association de Soccer Mineur de Windsor in Windsor, Quebec, says to see a referee leave the field crying and saying, I've had enough, disgusted me, he said. In 2023, they actually had several referees who told them that they were fed up and ready to leave, mainly because of parents. It's not that the job was too tough, it's that the parents of the children were being absolute jerks. Apparently, everybody thinks that their son or daughter is going to be the next Maradona or Pele or Messi or Ronaldo, and the referees can't seem to get anything right.
Yeah, there's something to be said for, I don't know, respecting authority.
Well, there were two incidents in particular that kind of spurred this. There was a 16-year-old referee who got swarmed by parents after a game. And in a second incident, a referee was chased by an adult player who'd been given a red card with a machete. So
This is in Quebec?
This is in Quebec, yeah. We're not talking
Anywhere else.
soccer, hockey,
Anywhere else.
anywhere else.
Anywhere else.
In particular.
Anywhere else. Just keep it over there. Oh, never mind. Okay, hey, look, that's ridiculous. Is there better news in the NBA and the Toronto Raptors against the LA team?
Sticking with the theme of referees, Darko Rajakovic was actually a little bit upset. If you look at if you looked at free throw opportunities in the fourth quarter alone, the Los Angeles Lakers were gifted 19 free throws to the Toronto Raptors 2. That I thought was a rather interesting statistic. Now, a lot of that is explainable.
Is it now?
Oh, yeah. Well, you see, Toronto decided to invoke the hack-a-shack defense later in the game to attempt to draw fouls to limit Los Angeles' 3-point and 2-point shooting opportunities and just bring them to the line. Unfortunately, it backfired on them. Toronto ended up losing 132 to 131, but that was part of the strategy to sort of try to slow everything down. So here's the thing, though. Scotty Barnes is a great offensive player for the Toronto Raptors. Uh, of all of the times that I actually saw him get fouled in the game, he went to the line exactly twice. So, there seems to be a bias. Yes, Toronto did engage in some shenanigans at the end of the fourth quarter to try to close it out, but at the same time, there are flops and flips that are being missed. So, Darko's a little upset.
That's terrible.
Mm.
Let's talk about Major League Baseball. Is there any umpiring issues? Oh, thank goodness. It's off season, so we won't have any umpiring issues.
No, Angel Hernandez is still employed by Major League Baseball, but it's okay. He's currently working on his golf game. There was actually a really neat development. A lady by the name of Rachel Balkovich was hired by the Miami Marlins as the new director of player development. This is kind of huge, mainly because Balkovich most recently served as a manager of the Yankees Single A affiliate in Tampa. That's the Tampa Bay Tarpons. So she's had some experience as the first woman to manage a minor league team. Before she became a manager, Balkovich was a strength and conditioning coach with the St. Louis Cardinals and the Houston Astros. She joined the Yankees as a full-time hitting coach in the organization. So that's a huge step forward. I think that's awesome. I mean, this is on the heels of major changes that are going on currently. With the Marlins organization, Peter Bendix was actually hired as president of baseball operations in November. This was weeks after general manager Kim Ong, the first woman in MLB history to serve as a GM, departed after 3 seasons. Former San Francisco Giants manager Gabe Kepler was added as an assistant GM. Vinesh Kanthan was brought in as a director of baseball ops after 5 years as the Texas Rangers assistant director of baseball operations. So lots of changes going on for the 84 and 78 Marlins, who finished third in the National League East before being swept in their best-of-3 wildcard series by the Phillies.
And women are getting more involved in professional sports. Good for them.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about the Dodgers. Another signing and more money.
Yeah. This is a 1-year, $23.5 million contract. Jeff Passan from ESPN reported on Sunday that $8.5 million of the deal will be deferred with payouts from 2030 to 2039. This deal is another high-profile Dodger contract in an offseason that's seen them sign Shohei Ohtani, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and former race starter Tyler Glasnow. For those of you who aren't familiar with who was signed, it's a gentleman by the name of Teoscar Hernandez. So after the Blue Jays, he's gone on to some bigger.
So around 2029, the Dodgers are going to sell the team. The people who own the team now, they're going to say, don't look at our deferred payments. Those are just a tiny little fraction of. I'm just kidding. I mean, that's going to be a real interesting couple of years there, as it turns over in the decade. My goodness, I don't know. I mean, they're also what they're doing is they're deferring a problem. I guess I don't know.
It just seems a little bit odd to me that his payouts are going to start in 2030, which is another 6 years from now. I mean, okay, so that's the $8.5 million that he's not going to be getting right off the hop. He's still getting $15 million for this year.
Kablooey.
Yeah.
And then you have the Leafs who do it the other way. Let's give you all your money first.
Yeah, I can kind of see that.
All the money right now, and then we'll give you more than you deserve, and we'll give all of it to now, so that and then you'll be $1 million player the last few years. Yeah, okay, sounds good to me. I think. Okay, despite hockey ban, some teams have kept post-game handshakes.
Now, this is something that we reported on a few weeks
Yeah.
ago, especially after players and coaches were fighting each other apparently in the handshake line. But Hockey Newfoundland and Labrador eliminated post-game handshakes due to incidents that caused players and coaches to be suspended last month. So it wasn't just minor shenanigans. They felt it was serious enough that these individuals needed to take time away from behind the bench. Um, but a lot of teams have continued the long-standing tradition in defiance of the organization. In some of the first games back from the holiday break, posts on Facebook indicate that some teams in the province are continuing to shake hands after games. This is in the Port aux Basques Minor Hockey Association. Uh, Brock Seward, he's the president of the Port aux Basques Minor Hockey Association, says he knows some of the teams have shaken hands after games and some that haven't. I mean, let's be honest here, Frank. It's a hard tradition to break.
Do you see the irony? They're fighting to keep sportsmanship in the game.
Yeah,
They're fighting to keep sportsmanship in the game. I like it. It works for me. I like that kind of, well, anyway. Ken Klee happily trades Costa Rican vacation for a coaching stint in the newest hockey league.
so Ken was actually supposed to be vacationing with his wife and friends in Costa Rica, but about the middle of November, late November, early December, he actually found himself back in a Target in Minneapolis, St. Paul, looking to pick up sundries because the Minnesota PWHL team actually called him to see if he would be interested in coaching them. Uh, it's not his first go around. He has coached Team USA, the women's team, before. He actually helped coach the U.S. national women's team to gold in the 2015 and 2016 World Championships. So there is some pedigree there. Minnesota themselves are off to a 2-0 start, and actually currently have the league's largest fan base thanks to the fact that they're actually playing out of the National Hockey League Wild XL Energy Center. So
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. And you know the league is doing well. They had the old Maple Leaf Gardens was packed. So, you know, there's a lot of good news happening in the PWHL. Let's talk with the National Hockey League, and maybe this is why Samsonov came back from the AHL. The NHLPA announced his first line program meant to support mental health of NHL players.
So the NHLPA has actually announced a new program called First Line. It's meant to support the mental health of NHL players, as Frank mentioned. They made the announcement at the Hockey Hall of Fame Wednesday in partnership, with Opening Minds, which is a division of the Mental Health Commission of Canada. Former NHL defenseman Jay Harrison basically sees that as an advantage, especially using his own experience to help current NHL players lower their guards about mental health. We know that for the past week or so, Ilya Samsonov has been down with the Marlies, um, partly for conditioning, partly to work with the goalie coaches there, and partly, I'm reasonably certain, to work with the team therapist. He has, I mean, there has been rumors that he was going to be playing for the Marlies, but I don't think that's the case. We could talk about that a little bit more later. Um, but this program is basically another way for the NHLPA to continue to focus their efforts on enhancing the overall wellness of their players on and off the ice. Um, One of those individuals that has also been benefiting from the program is the NHLPA's executive director, Marty Walsh. He says that, as a recovering alcoholic, he certainly knows firsthand of the benefits of having tools and resources available that can be used. So I think this is a good step forward to helping lessen the stigma so that there's less of a ha ha what it was every time a player takes time off themselves. Most significantly, recently, Jonathan Huberdeau and also Killington.
Yeah, no, this is something. You know, the stresses of life affect people, and just because they're hockey players doesn't mean they don't have stresses of life. Even though we might sometimes over calculate, overestimate the difference between a hockey player and a guy working the line in the Ford plant or whatever. They both I'm not trying to play down what happens in hockey. I'm trying to, in a way, play it down to say that it's the same as ordinary people. So, the league and the NHL Players Association, their job is to also create a safe environment for employees. And then in case of the NHLPA, their job is to make the place safe for their partners, because the players are partners in the NHLPA, and therefore they have an opportunity that ordinary folks don't have, and that is like their union, but that looks after them and considers some of the growing acceptance that mental illness is and issues are getting bigger and bigger, not because there's more and more of them, but because we're beginning to understand how many there are, and it's becoming a lot, and so they're dealing with it. And as you said, the stigma of not being mentally in a good place is not a bad thing. It's a phase, and that's what you want to turn it into. You want to turn it into a phase, and the NHLPA here is this is the first line program. Obviously, means this is the group that's looking for people that need assistance. So good for them, and best of luck to them. Best of luck to Connor Bedard, whose jaw has been or will be repaired, and he will be absent from the Blackhawks lineup and the NHL, which is a loss because everybody loves this kid so much, for 6 to 8 weeks. Aaron, how is he doing?
Well, he apparently is recovering now post surgery. Uh, he, I'm not sure how many folks amongst our viewers actually caught the play, but it was a tremendous hit that he received as he was coming across the center of the ice with his head down, which is something every hockey player knows that you're not supposed to do. Unfortunate, it wasn't a dirty hit. It just appeared that he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, looking in the wrong direction. Um,
Little guy hit by big guy.
yep, and if this were international rules, it would have been 5 minutes in a game. However, because it's the NHL, Bedard was unfortunately down for the count. Luke Richardson said, uh, look, it wasn't a dirty hit. We don't feel that it was a dirty hit. We're not looking for anything like that. But at the same time, you know, it's kind of traumatic for a young player to have an injury like that. And you could see the look of shock on his face as he was taking himself off the ice. Um, I don't think Brendan meant to do it, but this, while unfortunate for Connor, kind of helps out the Chicago Blackhawks in a way as well, because they're racing to the bottom. So, it's one of those things where there's a silver lining in this. Connor Bedard will have a chance to recover in the next 6 to 8 weeks. The Chicago Blackhawks will have a chance to chase San Jose for #1 spot in the lottery. And other teams won't necessarily be as terrified of the Chicago Blackhawks the next time they're in town.
One thing's for sure, Bedard has an opportunity to understand where he's playing, and it's not Junior A anymore. It's the National Hockey League. These are grown men. You still have a little growing to do when you're in junior. That part is pretty much leveling off at this level, which means height, size, and the amount of time they spend in the weight room and or bulking up in any way possible that assists them in making sure. See, I disagree. He meant to do what he did. What he didn't mean to do is the result. By that, but he did mean to smack him good, because that's what that play said. That play said, "Oh, look, Cherry, I think I'll pick it." So that's just a decisions made by the player. He says, I'm gonna clock him. I can't help it. It's just so tasty. I just got to do it, and that's what happens. And he's got to get used to the fact that this wasn't a headhunting situation, which you expressed with Richardson, also the coach of the Chicago Blackhawks, agreeing. And he's concerned about the most important issue, and that's how it affects Connor Bedard. Hopefully he grows from this. And I remember, oh my goodness, I forgot his name, played for Anaheim. His mother was Japanese. I say that because
Paul Kariya.
Yeah, Paul Kariya.
Yeah.
I'm worried about that kind of situation. That poor guy, his career was was snuffed by headhunting, by hits that were meant to injure and involving the head. So hopefully the league has learned something from that experience, so that this experience that Bedard has is one that, yep, if he more careful, he won't have this happen to him. And that's, I think, the ultimate goal that we all want, right?
Yeah, that is exactly it.
Right. So let's talk about the Sens, and they played the Flames.
They did play the Flames, and unfortunately, while getting rid of DJ Smith, sorry, seems to have done something. Bringing back Martin hasn't exactly helped them. Calgary kind of came alive in the third period, and burned the Senators. They basically doubled them up after trailing 3-2 going into the third period. It took them under a minute to tie the game, and then they ended up doubling the Sens 6-3. So
yeah, Benny might not. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to go to the next one.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say Connor Zary has actually been absolutely dynamic for Calgary. Nazem Kadri had 2 assists to give him 600 career NHL points. Jacob Bernard-Docker, Dominic Kubalik, and Brady Tkachuk provided the offense for the Senators, who've dropped the first 4 games of its 5-game road trip so far. So if they're looking to salvage anything, there's little time left.
Benny, and the Jets win 7 straight.
This is huge for them. If I recall correctly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this one, Frank, I believe that NHL that the Jets are now sitting in first in the NHL. So that is something. Vancouver is up there as well. I know, right?
I believe,
but it's one of those situations where
being right.
They came out of nowhere. The team that had set the league on fire, the Boston Bruins, are now in third place, and Winnipeg and Vancouver are 1 and 2.
Yes. So you have Winnipeg with 58 points on 40 games. Vancouver Canucks have a game in hand at 57, and Bruins have 40 as well at 56. And wow, so the standings have changed a little bit. There's a little more pep in their skating as far as the Jets are concerned. This is fantastic, and this is great because they're back to where they were a few years ago, and I love the way the Jets fans were treated to a really good team. We're going back to the coach that went to Florida to teach how to play dirty. I mean,
now
that was my inside voice. My inside voice just jumped out. Sorry, I wasn't referring to Paul Maurice, or was I? I don't know. Former coach of the Winnipeg Jets, whose team was pretty tough. And I got to get off I'm thinking Florida now, because I'm starting to see all these lovely stories about people finally realizing that they're a dirty team. Finally realizing, we got to see it up close against the Leafs and the kind of stuff that they did that wasn't penalized. And now people are talking about it outside of, and the question is, on that dirty hit thing, because I'm thinking about that too. You know what? That's what it is. The Bedard thing's worrying me, that kid. We don't want to see talent like that go. The Jets play a different style than they did under Paul Maurice. This team is a little more of a standard try to catch us hockey team, and they're doing a masterful job, and good for them and their fans. Another group of fans who are really happy, very relieved after the slow start this season. The Oilers, they did just enough to beat those Chicago Blackhawks, those Bedardless. That sounds like a terrible thing. They're the Bedardless Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean? They're the Bedardless.
It does sound pretty bad. But
it is kind of bad for him that he's not there, though. That's for sure.
It is really
Bedardless Chicago Blackhawks.
I mean, when you see plays like that happen to Bedard, and you see what happened to you see what Nick Cousins did to that player for the Arizona Coyotes. You remember what they did to Matthew Nyes in the playoffs. All of it comes back to roost. Kevin Bieksa wasn't wrong. 90% of the time when Nick Cousins does this sort of stuff, he's at the bottom.
He does turtling. He turtles.
Yeah.
When it comes for payback, he hides.
Mm-hmm. And
he's not a small guy.
No, he's not a small guy at all. But asking your teammates to fight for you is uh, well,
I don't
I
think.
can't say the words because they're bad.
Well, it has to do with turkey. No, not turkey, chicken.
Chickens, yeah, there you
Chicken.
go. But
The
the
chicken's
usual
always
suspects
someone
were
blue.
in action, by the way, against the Chicago Blackhawks. Just so we don't get too off
That's right.
track here.
Go ahead.
Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl actually had the goals as Edmonton extended their NHL win streak now to 8 games, which is good. They're back on track and they're winning again. Um, they This is their 8th straight from November. They actually won 8 straight. Sorry, from November 24th to December 12th. And this current streak that they're on started December 21st with a 6-3 win over New Jersey. It looks like they're finally hitting their stride. And after the shambolic start that they had to the year, and relieving their coach of his duties, seems to be happening a lot these days. They look like they're finally finding their footing. So they're still back in 20th place, but they're 8-2-0 in their last 10, so that's a bit of a relief.
And they're close to a playoff spot. They're
yeah,
within striking distance. And they've got a lot of runway left. It's not like the season's crawling to an end or jumping to an end. Let's talk about the Maple Leafs. Woohoo! Marner had 4 points in a 7-1 victory.
well,
Give me 4 points when it matters, please.
Well, this game does matter. I mean,
Oh no, the game matters. It's the 4 points in a 7-1 romp, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that actually brings him up to 598 points, puts him just ahead of Frank Mahovlich, 2 points away from 600 in his career, which is, I must say, a nice accomplishment for someone as young as he is. Um, you know, 2 goals, 2 assists. Hey, man, I'll take it. He's doing wonders for my fantasy team right now, so
Well, good
I'm
for
not
you.
exactly complaining.
It's good to know somebody's benefiting from his point scoring.
No, when you look at the Leafs and you look at the little caption beside their name, they've now won 4 in a row because they won their Western Road swing, and they've kept that going at home here. Unfortunately, when you look at the San Jose Sharks byline, their streak says L12. They've lost 12 in a
What
row.
about the Nylander 2 points after
Not
signing his
complaining about
contract?
that at all. There are people that will say that you're giving him a little bit too much money now and mortgaging the future because of the fact that the salary cap. We've heard this from Bettman before. It's going to go up a lot. You get $1.5 million. I get that, but there are some players that are coming off the books, so they should be all right.
$140 million between, well, the Leafs signed a couple of their big guns. The San Jose Sharks, the whole team doesn't make that much money.
This is very true.
I'm just saying. But look where they are and look where the Leafs are. So let's talk about, we talked about the mental status of a player, how they feel. Are they in a good place in their mind to play their position? Samsonov, we've heard it hasn't been only something wrong with him physically. The Leafs have made a point of saying physical and mental issues, almost to say they want to talk about the mental issues, but they don't want to do it by itself. So they say he's got physical problems too. So this could be a lot of things that are going on with him. And maybe it could be, and this is me just sheer speculation in asking the question, Aaron, is it because of his problem they don't want him to be around the Marlies because maybe it isn't just physical or have they decided maybe it's better to have him close by? So let me know your opinion.
I think part of why they sent him down with the Marlies.
There's another goalie coach down there who's done some good work with players with issues.
Exactly, and that's part of keeping him in the fold and keeping him close to home and making sure that he gets the help that he needs. I mean, he practiced with the Marlies, but he never actually played for them, and I think that's something important to remember here.
Can we also remember that they're not really sending him down; they're sending him across the hallway?
Yeah, pretty much. It's here's a token. Have some fun. But yeah, I mean, when they put him on waivers on December 31st, I don't think there was any doubt in anybody's mind that he was definitely going to clear, and he cleared the next day. He's practiced with the AHL club, but hasn't appeared in the game. I mean, he's 5-2-6 with a 3.94 goals against average and an 862 save percentage so far this season. Now that part of that, I think, indicates to me that there's something that's still definitely physically wrong somewhere. But for those of us who spend a lot of time watching the Leafs, as you and I do, um, he did seem to lose his crease a lot. He did seem to get frustrated with himself a lot. Um,
Which speaks to the mental aspect of the game. It doesn't
exactly.
mean, and I don't want people to, to jump over, the cow goes over the moon. What we're talking about here is having their head in the game, confidence. We're talking about, while, you look at any kind of mental illness, do you have the confidence to live without alcohol? Do you have the confidence to believe in yourself? Do you have the confidence to think you could play goal in the National Hockey League? That's a very specific task. It's, and for young men who are athletes, and women, we've learned as well. We have a gymnast that took time off, from being a gymnast. So, this could very well be just a simple thing where the mental makeup that he has right now denies him the ability to be effective. And the Leafs are searching, and I know he is too. They're searching for a way to get him back in that sweet spot where he has to be, mentally, physically, and, confidently.
I mean, when you look at Ilya Samsonov, this is a guy that played for Magnitogorsk in the KHL and the MHL. He had a 9.25 save percentage in the KHL. He had a 9.35 save percentage in the MHL. This is a guy that succeeded at an elite level. 2019, 2020 with the Washington Capitals, he had a 9.13 save percentage. 2020, he followed that up with a 9.02. 21, 22, he had an 896. 22, 23 was a bounce back year for him. He was at a 919. He was anointed our starter. He was going to be our savior. And then the wheels appeared to fall off. Whether this was as a result of an injury that happened that didn't get picked up during training camp or during the preseason, or whether the fact that he allowed 52 goals in the 15 games that he's played that finally got to him. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it seems relatively obvious that he's not in the same headspace that he was before, and that generates a shame.
I'm hearing Queen and David Bowie in the background, and I
Oh,
think the
under
biggest
pressure, yes,
problem,
sir.
uh, you know, hey, listen, we talked about this with Nylander. I'm just saying that on purpose. On Nylander. Nylander. No, never mind. So, he has the ability to, like a duck with water off his back. The pressure of playing in Toronto doesn't seem to phase him. He's always smiling, like not crazy smiling, just like, yeah, I know. I'm supposed to be flipping out because I'm playing in Toronto, but no, ain't gonna happen. I think when it comes to goaltenders, I think that's true too, and probably even more true in Toronto specifically. There are some goaltenders, and I think one of the reasons why Jones can handle it is his experience and age. It's not easy to live and work under the environment and that spotlight that is Toronto hockey. It is it's tough. So one of the things the Leafs have to worry about is finding players who can play on their team, not just play well, but play on their team well. It's we've seen this for decades where players are playing in Toronto. They leave Toronto, they win the Morris Trophy, Norris Trophy. Sorry, and we've seen them, score multiple points that they didn't score in Toronto. We've seen them win championships they didn't win in Toronto. So there's something to be said for the difficulty in Toronto for finding players, not just that can play, but that can play in the environment that Toronto is. Samsonov hopefully he'll get through this. If he doesn't, he's going to have to do what other players have done, and that is ask for a trade and go somewhere where he can do a reset. Because unfortunately, Aaron, that's what it's looking like to me. Like he needs a reset. I mean, a full reset. This is, I think, we'll know in the next couple of weeks. Brad Terreliving has to make a decision. Will this guy work, or does he figure out a way? You know, you can't exactly get rid of a guy like this easily because, you know, the reason he's out, you know, that Toronto Maple Leafs are very politically, well, they try to be politically correct as much as they can.
No, it's very true that at this point here, when it comes to Samsonov, you may have to look upon this as a gambit that failed, and you may need to hit the reset button. As it currently stands, however, Martin Jones has been more than adequate. Joseph Wall is now skating again and taking reps in practice, so that's good.
This will be his third day on the ice.
Yeah, and he's been doing a lot of work skating behind the net and retrieving pucks, so that is a good sign as well. His ankle doesn't appears to be healing up nicely, so we'll see. Hopefully, I pray to God this happens. They don't rush Joseph back.
Oh, absolutely not. They shouldn't.
We have a goaltending duo that I think can do it if needed. So, you know,
well, they sent Hillaby back to the AHL on loan, which means he's still a Maple Leaf guy. So, you know, they don't have to go through that ritual of, here, do you want this young, big, giant ass goalie? Just take him. Yeah, they don't want that to happen. They got to protect themselves against that because he's a guy that, you know, let's face it, at that level, you need to have more than one goaltender that could be the goaltender. And the Marlies have to have 2 or 3 of them because, you know, you don't hit the jackpot with all the goaltenders all the time. So it'll be real interesting. Well, the Leafs will be playing on Thursday. I guess they're playing against the Islanders. Is it in Toronto or on the island?
No, it's in Long Island. It's on the island.
In Long Island. Okay. Yeah. So they'll be playing there where the last time they went, we saw Tavares get his silver stick goal point.
Yes. So they won't have to worry about that distraction this time around. Now, the good news for the Marlies is if Hillaby does go back up, Luke Kavalin has actually been filling in with them. Unfortunately, so far with the Marlies this season, in the 2 games that he's played, he's thrown an .837 at them. But he has been playing against teams that are higher, significantly higher in the standings than the Marlies. Unfortunately, I don't think he was given a lot of support when it came to that. I saw him play on Boxing Day in the Scotiabank Arena game, and I thought he looked decent. But again, there is a difference in skill levels between the Growlers, where he had a .918 save percentage, and the AHL, where he's had an .837. As it currently stands, he's been a very adequate fill-in for the Marlies, which means that they can move Hillaby up and down. They can bring Petruzzelli up and down if they need to. There are options that are available.
And they'll be looking for more.
Yes. Oh, for sure.
Because if Samsonov's off the table, that means there's a support group they need to add in there because they've got to concern themselves with, as I said, the next one. If there's a need for a next one. You can't, when it comes to the Leafs and draft choices they've lost over the years, they just can't trade. I know Treliving, there was talk that he might be trading for a goalie. I don't think so. In the position that they're in, they would have to pay through the nostril.
Oh, and everybody's aware of that too. The unfortunate thing is their current positional player woes are pretty much laid bare for the league because of who they are and where they are in the league. So,
and then you've got the situation before we get off the Leafs is that their defense is starting to look not top notch, but it isn't as bottom feeder as it appeared to be earlier in the season. You know, with Simone doing some good work for them, being physical and, you know, playing a good way. We saw Riley get a goal the other night, his 4th one, which is, you know, this is the same guy who had like 12 by this time a couple of years ago, having a little difficulty putting the puck in the net. You know, their defense is playing well enough to throw a shutout to throw 1-goal games, because they deserve as much credit as the goaltender, not to take credit away from the goaltender and not to take credit away from the forwards. But the thing is, forwards and goaltenders can do a lot of good work if the defense leaves the goaltender high and dry. We've seen that story. We've seen where Samsonov and other goaltenders in the Leaf net have really been left out to dry. We've seen it with Joseph Wall. So the defense now with the Leafs is not not a big deal that Brad Treliving's scouring the league for defensemen. What he can do, and what the Leafs have done really well, is find players who are not valued at the same level that they deserve on other teams, and when they bring them to Toronto, that's what they got to do. They got to bring in undervalued players, buy low, and then sell high, or at least exist high. And they've done a good job with that on their defense. They've done a patchwork job, and I think the GM's done a fairly good job there.
Their defense pairings, for the most part, were adequate while Liljegren was out after the uncalled slew foot. TJ Brody being injured didn't help. Jake McCabe with a lower body injury didn't help as well. The fact that they're now healthy and they've gotten most of their regular pairs back, Riley Brody, Benoit has been a very pleasant surprise. I was expecting to see a lot more of him down on the Marlies, but he's fit in very, very nicely for the Maple Leafs. But Benoit and McCabe have been absolutely dynamic. Giordano is still
physical guys, right?
Oh yeah,
but the Leafs aren't known for,
no, and it's a nice surprise on the back end.
Absolutely. It's not a very good surprise for the opposition when they go in there and go, "Oh, this is the Leaf defense. Tiptoe through the daisies with me," and then you get clocked. So yeah, and not a big guy, but does what I think is necessary for defense. You got to keep the offensive players in your zone thinking that there's going to be a little punishment involved in being in the zone, because at least it takes a little bit of their concentration on putting the puck in the net, looking for players. Instead, the players are looking for it don't wear the same jerseys they do, and that's what you need to do. I'm old enough to know that that's the way it works. We talk about physicality, not talking about dirty. We're talking about keeping the opposition honest and making them take a second look to see if there's somebody coming at them, and in that moment making their plays less advantageous.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was a pause on my part to give you a chance to. Anything else on the Leafs you want to?
No, I got nothing at the time being.
How about Nylander leading the league in votes in the All-Star game?
Oh, that wasn't a surprise. I knew that as soon as he was given that $11.5 million contract, there were a certain subsection of Toronto fans that would vote for him because they loved it, and then there were another subsection of Toronto fans that would vote for him just to put him in the All-Star game to see if he would fail. It's a recipe for success in getting him into the All-Star game.
Yeah, all right. Say yes. Let's talk about France, and let's talk about the youngest ever prime minister.
So this is in response to his slightly flagging numbers. Emmanuel Macron has appointed Gabriel Attal as the youngest ever prime minister at age 34. This is fantastic news. He rose to prominence originally as the government spokesperson, then education minister, and has polled consistently as the most popular minister in the outgoing government. His predecessor, Elizabeth Bourne, resigned Monday following political turmoil over an immigration law that strengthened the government's ability to deport foreigners that was seen as slightly xenophobic. Macron said that he wanted Attal to revive the spirit of 2017, which was when Macron shook up politics and shot to a surprise victory as France's youngest ever president on a pro-business and centrist platform aimed at reviving one of the world's biggest economies. The president's second term is going to last until 2027, and he's constitutionally barred from a third consecutive term. But the belief is that by bringing in Attal, it can sort of soften Macron's shift rightward on security and migration issues. In particular, because Marine Le Pen and her anti-immigration, anti-Islam national rally have gained political influence. So, because of his shift slightly rightwards to counter Marine Le Pen, he's brought in Attal, who is also the first openly gay prime minister for France, who will more than likely be succeeding him come elections in 2027.
There is the issue around the world where we have two things fighting each other: acceptance of people who were not accepted from the beginning of time, um, like gay people, like women. You know, this is, and I'm not saying this to be funny, but I'm trying to be accurate here. So now you have the people on the other side, whoever they are. I'll let everyone else define who they are. You want to call them the right, you want to call them whatever. The point is, people don't like change, and sometimes change, while for some fast change is good, for others it's much harder to accept. Now, this is not about saying right or wrong, and Macron is doing what politicians who have any idea of being in the center have to do to ensure that they maintain power. We're seeing that. We've seen Trudeau get buried because of his, I'm going to say, his image of being a leftist has drowned him. He's drowned. There's financial responsibility, and there is social change that people don't want to make so quick. So there's things that have to be done. So we'll see what happens in Canada. We know that here, at least it seems, we don't have as much of a pull to go. Well, maybe we will. We'll see. We'll see. There's, we've got a president, a guy wanting to be president of the United States who's a declared fascist, who wants to be a dictator for a day, and also is a habitual liar, a classless buffoon that people follow because he's giving them, or gave them, I think it's more, he gave them what they wanted, and they think they're going to get more of what they got last time. No, this guy's unshackled. He goes into the presidency. He can't be president again, so he can do, there's no point to him not doing anything when he gets in there. That's the fear of the second version of Donald Trump. And that's Macron's trying to avoid that.
No, for sure. He's trying. He has unfortunately had to go slightly more hardline to counter conservative and right wing forces in the government in order to retain power as a centrist and mild leftist. And as a result of that, he has had to appoint someone to further soften his image and try to draw the political center back towards the center, as
Yeah.
opposed to where it is skewed on immigration issues.
Well, it's about convincing people, and you got to go where the people are. And there are many people who feel that there's been too much change, and the phrase that I hear more and more is people being left behind. The people who weren't left behind in the past, and they're not comfortable, and I don't blame them for feeling, if that's the case, if they think that it's true. It's a hard thing to fight, Aaron. It's a hard thing to fight because it's a personal thing. Canada Post is selling off its logistics business. Logistics meaning, their version of FedEx and such.
Yeah, in an effort to sort of change up its image, they're actually selling SCI Group to Metro Supply Chain. Um, they're focusing on transforming to serve the changing needs of Canadians and Canadian businesses. Canada Post recorded a $290 million loss in the third quarter of 2023, while its cost of operations also rose by $26 million. So the Canada Post group of companies, which includes Canada Post, Purolator, Innova Post, and SCI, have been losing money for at least the last 5 years. So in an effort to stave off any further losses, SCI was operating independently, and it's now been sold. So SCI does warehouse fulfillment, supply chain solutions, and transportation management. Um, so it manages more than $1 billion worth of inventory per day at 75 different warehouses across the country, being directed to selling that to the Metro supply chain. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of information that's coming out. Canada Post has only been responding to queries from news outlets by email, and that can take some time. Not as much
Last
time as
story.
real mail, but
Last story, Aaron. Pick one.
Last story. Passenger fell out of a 777 in Toronto. They boarded the plane as normal, walked past their seat, opened the side door, and proceeded to fall out onto the tarmac. And one of those don't drink in the airports people. This was actually a flight to Dubai. It delayed the departure by about 6 hours.
Did you say a flight to bye-bye? Did you say a flight to bye-bye? They wave at him when he was going out.
Yeah, right.
Nah, never mind. That was a pun.
He's lucky he didn't come over one of the forward doors, get sucked into one of the engines. That was
yikes.
Aaron.
Hey,
I'm saying
something nice. You didn't really say that. Holy mackerel!
It's lucky he didn't.
Are we going out with that story? The image of never mind. A horror movie. Brought to you by Candid Frank Live. Email, please, Aaron William Freeland, not me.
Yes, please direct your complaints too.
Yeah. All right, dude. Thanks for doing this.
Hey, not a problem, Frank. We'll see you on Friday.
He's Aaron William Freeland. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching Candid Frank Live, Aaron, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 6 p.m. The show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For Candid Frank Live, other news, entertainment, and sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it here, read it, download it, live, and don't forget, Candid Frank Stanisci on YouTube. Subscribe. Have a great time, everybody. Leaf game tomorrow. Life every day.